Welcome back to Morning Love on DSTV channel 404, and we're almost at the end of our bulletin today. However, this week the International Criminal Court in Hague found Jean-Pierre Bemba criminally responsible for the war crimes committed by rebel fighters that were under his command at the time. Bembe is accused of failing to stop the rebels from killing and raping people in the Democratic Republic of Congo and the neighbouring Central African Republic in 2002 and 2003. Now, it is the first time a person has been convicted over crimes committed by others under his command. However, joining us from our Pretoria studios is Professor Kealeboga Maphunye from the WIPHOLD-Brigalia Bam Chair in Electoral Democracy in Africa. Professor, a very warm good morning to you. I hope I introduced you correctly.
Thank you very much. Good morning to Melo and good morning to the viewers.
Good morning. Thank you so much for your time. Now, Prof, what does this verdict mean for the ICC on one hand and Africa on the other, would you say?
In terms of the ICC, the verdict clearly means that, they are continuing to reach milestones of arraigning those people who are committing atrocities, genocide, murders and so on, such as, Jean-Pierre Bemba. But for the African continent and for the African leaders and the African people in general, it means that there are mixed responses. There are those who believe that, yes, it is good that you have a court such as this one, which is a court of last resort that can deal with, atrocities such as this ones. But there are those who believe that maybe we need African institutions based somewhere in the continent that can do the job so that you don't have to take Africans who are committing such atrocities outside the continent.
Now, Prof, let's reflect one more time on this case. I mean, while there has been, indictments of many individuals, the Pierre Bemba case is said to be the third, of course, to be, convicted since the court was founded back in 2002, with only 3 cases in 14 years, and all from the DRC. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, what I make of this, Tumelo, is that we have a serious situation, especially in the Great Lakes region. We know that it's a very volatile area, and we know that there have been quite numerous attacks on civilians, pillaging, raping, as well as genocide that even happened in countries such as Rwanda and DRC and Burundi. So we have quite a hodgepodge of dynamics to start with. But really, what the recent decision by the ICC in terms of Jean-Pierre Bemba means is that at least we can see that there is not going to be any impunity. Such leaders who commit murders, who attack civilians, who get involved in human rights abuses and on a mass scale, such as what is happening in the Great Lakes region, at least will not get off scot-free. Action can get taken against them. Whether Africans believe that it has to be done outside the continent or in the continent. At least there are those who believe, especially human rights bodies, that this is the right step to do.
Now, also speaking of, African countries and African leaders, Prof, I mean, a question is often asked whether the ICC is, biased against African leaders. But on the other hand, there's the justification and argument that it's the same African leaders who bring these cases to the ICC. So which is the truth between the two?
It is the irony as well as controversy that is reigning currently. It is correct that some African leaders believe that Africa does not have the capacity, to deal with human rights abuses on a mass scale, such as what is happening in the DRC. For instance, this movement for the liberation of Congo of Jean-Pierre Bemba, which was accused of all these atrocities, killing civilians, raping, and so on, as well as even the movement such as the M23 or Mouvement 23, which is also has been accused, of different atrocities and spreading political instability in the region. So there are those who believe that because the continent does not have capacity to deal with these atrocities, then perhaps you need a structure such as the ICC, which can be able to take proactive measures, such as what we have seen in the case of Jean-Pierre Bemba. But then, in reply to the question that this court is only targeting Africans, of course, that is the political argument currently. However, The flip side of that argument is that we do not have capacity in Africa currently to be able to, arraign such leaders who, treat their people with disdain, basically.
Now, Prof, when you say that, we don't have capacity, as Africa to address these atrocities, what do you mean by capacity?
The capacity in this regard is obviously an institution. We do have the court in Tanzania dealing with human rights, but many human rights bodies and institutions, civil society bodies, believe that you need an institution that has got teeth, such as the ICC, which can not only just issue threats or issue warrants of arrest without necessarily implementing them, and even after they've implemented them, being able to take steps to arrest somebody such as Jean-Pierre Bemba and bring the person to book. Those are that is the capacity that we're talking about. Right. We mean prosecutorial powers and powers to be able to take effective action.
Understood. Now, Prof, let's go to our next point here. I mean, we know a few weeks ago that the UN commented on the scale and type of sexual violence committed in South Sudan, that as the most horrendous human rights abuses in the world. Now, what happens beyond these findings and this report?
That is also another challenge, because we know South Sudan, particularly areas such as Darfur and so on, there are all these mass human rights abuses which are happening, where civilians are being killed, left, right and center. And I think the United Nations is obviously quite concerned, like all other, international bodies, that this situation has got to be brought, under control. And I think what is going to happen is that they are obviously going to work with the regional powers and the countries within and around the region surrounding Sudan and South Sudan, so that they can be able to drum up support, work with human rights bodies in South Sudan, and hoping that eventually they will be able to come up with solutions that can help to arrest the situation. Clearly, you also need bodies such as the African Union to take to flex their muscles, essentially, and arrest the situation before it gets out of control.
And Prof, you strongly believe that this will send a strong message, to high-ranking soldiers and militia in the DRC, in South Sudan, and anywhere else in the world?
I believe it will do that, because if there's action such as this one that is being taken, clearly this will deter those who might be thinking of committing such acts, such as the Lord's Resistance Army, which as has happened in Uganda, in neighbouring Uganda, that they cannot just be left scot-free. Action will be taken against them, and eventually they be brought to book at an international court such as the ICC or a similar structure.
All right, Professor Kealeboga Maphunye, thank you so much for your time. A pleasure talking to you this morning.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you so much. Well, that was, of course, Professor Kealeboga Maphunye from the WIPHOLD-Brigalia Bam Chair in Electoral Democracy in Africa, of course, updating us on, the criminal court in Hague, which has found Jean-Pierre Bemba criminal responsible, of course, for the war crimes committed by rebel fighters that were under his command at the time.